They treated me like the maid in my own home until the cameras went viral. I still can't look at a glass of red wine without my hands shaking. It's been 8 months since everything blew up, and I still feel the cold, wet stain spreading across my chest every time I close my eyes. My name is Lauren, and I'm 32 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon now, but for 6 years, I lived in a 4-bedroom craftsman in Seattle with a man named Derek. I thought he was my future. I thought we were building something unbreakable. I was wrong, in ways I still haven't fully accepted. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue in Capitol Hill. He was grilling steaks, wearing a flannel with the sleeves rolled up, and he had this laugh that made everyone around him feel comfortable. I was 26, working as a marketing coordinator for a small outdoor gear company. He was 29, working in tech sales. He made good money, but not obscene money, just enough to make you feel like things were possible. He told me he loved how I listened. He said most people just wait for their turn to talk, but I actually heard him. I thought that meant something deep about us. Looking back, I think he just liked having an audience. We dated for a year before he asked me to move in with him. His house was beautiful. Big porch, maple trees in the front yard, a kitchen island that became the center of our life together. I remember the first morning I woke up there. Sunlight through the white curtains, his arm heavy across my stomach. I thought, this is what grown-up love feels like, quiet and certain and safe. The first cracks were tiny, almost invisible. Derek was particular about cleanliness, not in a frantic way, but in a controlled, deliberate way. He liked the dishwasher loaded a certain way. He wanted the coffee mugs arranged by size. He preferred the towels folded with the seam facing out. At first, I thought he was just organized. I told myself it was cute. A man who cares about his space. That's not a red flag, that's just adulthood. But it grew, slowly, like a vine wrapping around your ankle until you don't notice you can't move anymore. He started making comments, not yelling, nothing aggressive, just soft observations that somehow made me feel small. He would say, "Oh, you put the sponge in the left side of the sink. I usually do right side, no big deal." Or he would say, "I noticed you left your jacket on the dining chair instead of the hook, just so you know for next time." I started changing little things about myself to avoid his gentle corrections. I put my shoes in the exact spot he liked. I learned his dishwasher system. I stopped leaving my water glass on the nightstand because he said it left rings. He never thanked me for these adjustments because he never saw them as adjustments. He saw them as me finally learning how to do things right. Then we got engaged. It was our 3rd anniversary. He took me to Cannon Beach. We walked along the water, and he got down on one knee right in front of Haystack Rock. The ring was perfect, a round diamond with a rose gold band. I cried, he cried. Everyone we knew posted about it on Instagram. I felt like I had won something, like I had been chosen. The wedding was small, just 60 people at a winery in the Willamette Valley. My mom cried during the father-daughter dance. Derek's dad gave a speech about commitment and partnership. I remember looking around the room thinking, this is my family now. These are my people. I was so blind. After the wedding, things changed. Not overnight, but over months. Derek's sister Chloe started coming over more often. She was 29, single, lived in a studio apartment downtown that her parents helped her pay for. She worked as a freelance graphic designer, but from what I could tell, she didn't work much. She was pretty in a sharp way. Dark hair like Derek, green eyes, a smile that always looked like she knew something you didn't. Chloe didn't like me from the beginning. I felt it the first time we met. She hugged me too hard and held on too long, and whispered in my ear, "Welcome to the family." But her eyes stayed cold. She made little jokes at my expense that Derek laughed at. She would say, "Oh, Lauren, you're so sensitive about your cooking." Or, "Lauren, don't you ever get tired of being so serious?" When I told Derek it bothered me, he said, "That's just how she is. She's sarcastic. You'll get used to it." I didn't get used to it, but I stopped complaining because complaining made me the problem. That's the trick of relationships like mine. You get labeled as difficult so often that you start believing it. I started thinking maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I do make things weird. Maybe if I just tried harder, everyone would relax. Chloe started coming over for dinner 3 or 4 nights a week. She would show up without calling first, let herself in with the key Derek gave her, put her feet on the coffee table, and ask what we were eating. Derek loved it. He lit up around her in a way he never did around me. They had their own language, inside jokes from childhood, references to people I didn't know. They would laugh at something, and I would sit there smiling like a polite stranger. I was the one cooking those dinners, shopping for the groceries, planning the meals, cleaning up after. Derek and Chloe would stay at the table drinking wine and talking while I scraped plates and loaded the dishwasher exactly the way Derek liked. Sometimes I would hear Chloe say something that made Derek laugh hard, and I would feel this ache in my chest. Not jealousy exactly, something lonelier, something that felt like invisibility. The first time Chloe called me the maid, I almost laughed. I thought she was joking. We were in the kitchen, and she handed me her empty wine glass and said, "Here, maid, can you get me another one?" I looked at Derek. He smirked. Just a tiny smirk. Then he said, "Babe, can you grab me a beer while you're up?" I stood there, holding her glass for a second too long. Then I walked to the fridge. I didn't say anything because what was I supposed to say? If I got upset, I would be proving her point. I would be the sensitive one who can't take a joke. That's how it went for 2 years. 2 years of Chloe coming over. 2 years of cooking and cleaning and fetching drinks. 2 years of Derek treating me like a background character in my own marriage. He stopped asking about my day. He stopped thanking me for dinner. He stopped looking at me when we had sex, which became less and less frequent. He would roll over when he was done and say, "Love you, good night." And I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering when I stopped being a person and started being a service. I tried to talk to him so many times. I would wait until we were in bed with the lights off so I didn't have to see his face. I would say, "Derek, I feel like you don't see me anymore, like I'm just here to make your life easier." He would sigh, that heavy, disappointed sigh that made me feel like a burden. He would say, "Lauren, you're imagining things. I work hard all day. I come home and you're always upset about something. Can we just have one night where you're not trying to start a fight?" So I stopped trying. I swallowed my feelings so deep I almost forgot they existed. I focused on keeping the house perfect, on making sure Derek's favorite meals were ready when he walked through the door, on having his laundry folded and his coffee made and his schedule organized. I thought if I could just be good enough, he would see me again. He would remember why he chose me. Then Chloe moved in. Her studio apartment had mold in the bathroom, and she said she needed somewhere to stay for a few weeks while she found a new place. Derek didn't ask me. He just told me at dinner one night, "Chloe's crashing in the guest room for a bit." I said, "How long is a bit?" He said, "Why does it matter? She's family." I said, "I just want to know what to expect." He said, "You expect to be nice to my sister. That's what you expect." The guest room was my office. I worked from home 2 days a week, and that room had my desk, my files, my computer. Derek told me I could set up in the corner of the living room, so I did. I moved my work stuff into a corner of our open concept living room while Chloe took over the guest room with her clothes and her makeup and her endless phone calls on speaker. A few weeks turned into 6 months. 6 months of Chloe living in my house. 6 months of her leaving dishes in the sink and towels on the bathroom floor and her hair in the shower drain. 6 months of her walking around in my robe and using my expensive shampoo and eating the leftovers I was saving for my lunch. Every time I tried to bring it up, Derek would shut me down. "She's going through a hard time. She needs support." You don't know what it's like to have a sibling. You wouldn't understand. I don't have siblings. I'm an only child. Derek used that fact against me constantly. He made me feel like my inability to accept Chloe's behavior was a character flaw, like I was selfish and cold and incapable of understanding family loyalty. I started to believe that too. Maybe I was the broken one. Maybe this is just how families work and I'm too damaged to see it. The cameras happened because of the cat. We had a gray tabby named Milo. Derek loved that cat more than he loved me, and I'm not being dramatic about that. He would talk to Milo in this soft voice he never used with me. He would buy Milo expensive toys and organic cat food. He would spend hours on the floor playing with him. I was jealous of a cat. That's where my marriage was. Chloe kept leaving the back door open. Milo got out 3 times in 1 month. The 3rd time he was gone for 2 days, and Derek was frantic. He accused me of not watching the door. I told him Chloe was the one who kept leaving it open. He didn't believe me. He said I was trying to make his sister look bad. So I did something I'm not proud of. I bought a small security camera. I pointed it at the back door. I wanted proof. I wanted Derek to see with his own eyes that I wasn't lying. The camera was cheap, $25 on Amazon. It connected to an app on my phone. I didn't tell Derek because I knew he would say I was being paranoid or dramatic. I just set it up on top of the fridge one morning when he was at work and Chloe was at brunch with her friends. It blended in with the clutter on top of the fridge. No one noticed. For 2 weeks, I watched the footage. Chloe left the door open constantly. Every single day. She would come in from smoking on the porch and just let the door swing open behind her. She would prop it open with a shoe because she said the house got stuffy. Milo would walk toward the door and she would shoo him away, but she never closed it. I saved every clip. I was building my case. But the camera caught something else, too. Something I wasn't looking for. It was a Tuesday. Derek got home from work at 6:15. I was in the shower. Chloe was already there, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I saw Derek come in and drop his bag by the front door. He walked into the kitchen and poured himself a glass of whiskey. Then he sat down next to Chloe on the couch, not on the other end, right next to her, their thighs touching. I watched the footage on my phone while lying in bed that night. Derek put his arm around Chloe. She leaned into him. He kissed the top of her head. That could be innocent. Siblings can be affectionate. My brain tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. Then I kept watching. Chloe turned her face toward him. She said something I couldn't hear. Derek laughed. Then he stroked her hair. His fingers moved slowly through her dark hair, the way he used to do with mine. She closed her eyes. She looked comfortable. She looked like she belonged there. I told myself I was being crazy. I was projecting my insecurities. I was so desperate for evidence that Derek didn't love me that I was inventing something disgusting. I almost deleted the footage. I almost convinced myself I was the problem. Then 3 days later, the camera caught more. Derek and Chloe were in the kitchen alone. I was at the grocery store. I watched the footage when I got home. They were standing close together by the sink. Derek had his hands on her hips. Her hands were on his chest. They were talking quietly, intimately. Then she laughed and pushed him away playfully, but she didn't push him far. She stayed within his reach. She wanted to be caught. I couldn't breathe. I sat on the bathroom floor with my phone in my hands, watching that 10-second loop over and over. Hands on hips, hands on chest, laughing, not pulling away. My husband and his sister. My brain refused to process it. I thought maybe I had misinterpreted. Maybe they were just being playful. Maybe I had watched too many crime shows and my mind was going to dark places. I decided to confront Derek. Not about the hands, about the door. I made it to test him. I needed to see how he reacted to criticism about Chloe. So I showed him the clips of her leaving the back door open. He watched them on my phone. His jaw tightened. He handed the phone back and said, "Fine, I'll talk to her." No apology. "No, thank you for proving you weren't lying. Just fine, I'll talk to her." But he didn't talk to her. Nothing changed. Chloe kept leaving the door open, Milo kept getting out, and the camera kept recording. The night everything exploded started like any other night. I made dinner, pasta with homemade meat sauce and a side salad, Derek's favorite. Chloe sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through Instagram while I cooked. She didn't offer to help. She never did. Derek was in the shower. I was stirring the sauce when Chloe said something that made my blood go cold. She said, "Derek told me you've been acting weird lately, like jealous or something. You know that's pathetic, right?" I didn't turn around. I kept stirring. I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." She laughed, that sharp, mean laugh she used when she wanted me to feel small. She said, "Come on, Lauren. We both know you're threatened by me. It's actually sad. Like you really think you can compete with me in his life? You're just the wife. I'm his blood. You'll never matter as much as I do." I turned around then. I looked at her, sitting at my kitchen island in my house, wearing my robe. I said, "Chloe, you need to move out. This isn't working. You've been here 6 months, and you don't respect our space or our marriage." She smiled. She actually smiled. She said, "Our marriage? That's cute. You really think this is a marriage? He doesn't even like you, Lauren. He just doesn't want to pay for a divorce." I felt something break inside me. Not my anger, my hope. That tiny, desperate hope I had been holding on to for years finally shattered. I set down the wooden spoon. I walked out of the kitchen. I went to our bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and I didn't cry. I just sat there feeling hollow. Derek found me 10 minutes later. He said, "Chloe told me you kicked her out." I said, "She needs to go, Derek. She's been here 6 months and she treats me like garbage, and you let her." He sat down next to me. He put his hand on my knee. He said, "Babe, you're overreacting. She's just going through a tough time. You don't know what it's like to be single in your 30s. It's hard for her." I said, "What about me? What about what's hard for me?" He pulled his hand back. He stood up. He said, "I don't have the energy for this right now. Dinner is probably burning. Can you just come finish cooking?" That was the moment. That was the exact second I knew my marriage was over. Not because he was cruel, not because he hit me or screamed at me, because he looked at me standing on the edge of a breakdown and asked me to finish cooking dinner. My feelings were less important than pasta sauce. I didn't finish cooking. I went to the living room. I sat on the couch. Chloe was already eating. She had served herself without waiting for us. She looked at me with something like triumph in her eyes. Derek came in with his plate and sat in his usual chair. They ate in front of the TV like nothing had happened, like I wasn't sitting 3 feet away, completely falling apart. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Derek, listening to him breathe. I thought about the camera footage. I thought about Chloe's hands on his chest, his hands on her hips. I thought about how she had been living in our house for 6 months, how she had been slowly replacing me in every way that mattered. I thought about how Derek had stopped touching me months ago, how he didn't kiss me goodbye in the morning anymore, how he didn't look at me when we talked. I got up at 2 a.m. I went to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of wine. Then I opened a camera app on my phone. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that I was imagining things. Maybe I wanted to see them being normal so I could finally relax. The camera showed the living room. The lights were off, except for the blue glow of the TV. Chloe was on the couch. Derek was sitting on the floor between her legs. Her hands were in his hair. His head was leaning back against the couch cushion. They were watching something on the TV. It looked innocent enough. But then Chloe leaned forward. She whispered something in his ear. He turned his head and looked up at her. The expression on his face was not brotherly. It was hungry. It was the look a man gives a woman he wants. I stopped watching. I couldn't watch anymore. But I couldn't stop either. I kept the app open. I kept my eyes on the screen. I watched Chloe slide off the couch and sit on the floor next to Derek. I watched her put her arm around him. I watched him pull her closer. Then I watched her kiss him. On the mouth. Not a quick peck. A real kiss. A kiss that lasted too long and meant too much. I threw up, right there in the kitchen sink. I vomited into the stainless steel basin while holding my phone in my shaking hand. I rinsed the sink out. I brushed my teeth. I went back to bed and lay down next to my husband, who had just kissed his sister in my living room. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. I made a decision that morning. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to give him a chance to explain or deny or gaslight me. I was going to get proof. Real proof. The kind of proof that couldn't be explained away. I bought 3 more cameras. Better ones. Small and hidden. I put one in the living room, pointing at the couch. I put one in the guest room, pointed at Chloe's bed. I put one in the hallway, pointed at the bathroom door. I set them all up while Derek was at work and Chloe was at a yoga class. I felt like a spy in my own home. I felt sick and powerful at the same time. For 2 weeks, I collected footage. I watched hours of video. Most of it was nothing. Chloe scrolling her phone, Derek watching sports, the two of them having normal conversations. But every few days there would be a moment, a touch that lingered too long. A look that shouldn't exist between brother and sister, a kiss on the cheek that drifted too close to the mouth. Then on a Thursday night, I got everything I needed. Derek and Chloe were in the living room. I was supposedly asleep, but I was in bed watching the live feed on my phone. They had been drinking. A bottle of wine was empty on the coffee table. Chloe was crying about something. Her ex-boyfriend had texted her. Derek was comforting her, his arm around her, her face buried in his chest. She looked up at him. Her face was wet with tears. She said, "Why can't I find someone like you? Someone who actually cares about me?" Derek wiped a tear from her cheek. He said, "You will. You deserve the best." She said, "What if I already found him?" He didn't say anything. He just looked at her. Then she kissed him. He kissed her back. It wasn't quick. It wasn't hesitant. They kissed like two people who had done it before. Then Chloe pulled back and said, "I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend. I can't watch you with her." Derek said, I know, I'm sorry." She said, "Then leave her. Just leave her, Derek. She doesn't love you like I do. She doesn't know you like I do." He said, "It's complicated. The house, the money, her family." She said, "I don't care about any of that. I just want you." He pulled her close again. He kissed her forehead. He said, "I want you too. I've always wanted you, since we were kids. I just didn't know how to make it happen." I stopped recording. I had enough. I had more than enough. I had a confession. I had proof of an incestuous relationship between my husband and his sister. I had evidence that my marriage had been a lie from the beginning. I had everything I needed to destroy them both. But I didn't want to destroy them. Not then. I just wanted out. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to wake up from the nightmare and find out my life was real again. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Sarah. She was recommended by a woman at my gym who had gone through a brutal divorce. Sarah listened to everything. She didn't gasp. She didn't tell me I was overreacting. She said, "Lauren, this is the most disturbing case I've heard in 10 years. Do you have documentation?" I told her about the cameras. She paused. She said, "Is that legal in Washington?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "We need to find out. But don't delete anything, don't destroy anything, just keep it safe." I downloaded all the footage onto a hard drive. I made 3 copies. I hid one in my car. I left one at Sarah's office. I kept one in a lockbox at the bank. I felt like I was preparing for a war I never wanted to fight. I also started secretly apartment hunting. I opened a new bank account that Derek didn't know about. I started moving small amounts of money into it every week. I packed a go bag and hid it in the trunk of my car. Clothes, toiletries, important documents. I was ready to leave at any moment. But I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Some sick part of me still hoped Derek would wake up, would see me, would choose me. That hope died on a Saturday afternoon. Chloe was out with friends. Derek was home. He was sitting on the couch watching football. I was cleaning the kitchen. I don't even know why I was cleaning. Habit, I guess. Muscle memory. I was scrubbing the stovetop when Derek said, "Hey, can you grab me another beer?" I said, "You have legs, Derek. Get it yourself." He looked at me like I had slapped him. He said, "Excuse me?" I said, "You heard me. I'm not your maid. I'm not your servant. I'm your wife. Or I'm supposed to be, but you wouldn't know that because you treat me like hired help." He stood up. He walked toward me. His face was hard. He said, "What is wrong with you lately? You've been so difficult, so angry all the time. I can't even talk to you anymore without you snapping at me." I said, "Maybe I'm angry because your sister lives in our house and kisses you in our living room when you think I'm asleep." The color drained from his face. For a second, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by something colder. He said, "What did you just say?" I said, "You heard me, Derek. I know everything." I've known for weeks. The cameras, the footage, I have it all. He stepped back. He put his hand on the kitchen island to steady himself. He said, "You're lying. You're crazy. You're making this up." I said, "I'm not making anything up. You kissed her. She kissed you. You said you've wanted her since you were kids." I have it all in video. He didn't deny it. He didn't explain. He just stood there staring at me with his mouth slightly open. Then he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to take half of everything, and I'm going to show that footage to everyone who ever loved you." He lunged at me. I don't know what he was going to do. Grab me, shove me, I don't know. I backed up and hit the counter. He stopped 2 feet away from me. His hands were shaking. His face was red. He said, "You can't do that. That's my sister. You'll destroy her. You'll destroy my whole family." I said, "You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with her." He said, "We never slept together. Not really. Just kissing, just touching. It's not what you think." I laughed. I actually laughed in his face. I said, "Derek, you told her you've wanted her since you were kids. That's not nothing. That's everything. That's the whole story right there." He started crying. Big, ugly sobs. He slid down the kitchen island and sat on the floor with his back against the cabinets. He put his head in his hands. He said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Lauren. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've been messed up for so long. She's the only person who understands me." I looked down at my husband sitting on my kitchen floor weeping, and I felt nothing. No pity, no love, no anger even, just emptiness. He had drained me completely. There was nothing left. I grabbed my keys. I walked out the front door. I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. I ended up at a motel off the highway, the kind with flickering lights and thin walls. I paid cash for one night. I sat on the scratchy bedspread and I called my mom. She answered on the second ring. She said, "Hey, honey, what's going on?" I started crying. I couldn't stop. I told her everything. The cameras, Chloe, Derek, the footage, the confession. She listened without interrupting. When I was done, she said, "Come home. Come home right now. You don't have to do this alone." I drove to my mom's house that night. She lives in a small town about 2 hours south of Seattle. I showed her the footage on my laptop. She watched 10 minutes of it. Then she closed the laptop and hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. She said, "We're gonna burn him to the ground." That's not a direct quote from my sweet Christian mother, but that's the energy she brought. She called a family friend who was a retired judge. She called my dad, who had been divorced from her for 15 years, but still showed up with a U-Haul the next morning. My parents haven't spoken more than 10 words to each other in a decade, but they both showed up for me. That's what love looks like. Not Derek's twisted version. Real love. I went back to the house with my dad and 2 of my cousins. Derek wasn't there. Neither was Chloe. Their cars were gone. The back door was unlocked. I packed everything I owned in 2 hours. My dad loaded the boxes into the U-Haul. My cousins grabbed my furniture. I didn't take anything that belonged to Derek. I didn't want anything that had his energy on it. Before I left, I did one thing. I went to the guest room where Chloe had been sleeping. I opened the closet. Her clothes were still there. Her robe was on the hook. Her expensive shampoo was in the shower. I left everything, but I took one thing. The framed photo of Derek and Chloe on the beach from when they were kids. They were maybe 12 and 9, arms around each other, smiling at the camera. I looked at that photo for a long time. I wondered when it started, when the innocent love between a brother and sister curdled into something else. I put the photo in my bag. I don't know why. Evidence, I guess. Or maybe just proof that my life had been a lie from the very beginning. The divorce took 9 months. Derek fought me on everything. He hired a shark lawyer who tried to make me look unstable. He claimed I had fabricated the footage. He claimed I had manipulated the recordings. He claimed I was a bitter woman trying to destroy a close sibling bond because I was jealous of their relationship. Then Sarah played the footage in a deposition. I wasn't there. I didn't want to be there. but she told me what happened. Derek's lawyer asked for a private recess after the first clip. Derek apparently sat in the conference room with his head down while his lawyer tried to figure out how to spin it. They couldn't spin it. There's no way to spin a man kissing his sister and saying he's wanted her since childhood. The case never went to trial. Derek settled for everything I asked for. The house, half his retirement, alimony for 3 years. He signed the papers without looking at me. Chloe wasn't there. She had moved to Arizona. Or maybe Nevada. I don't know. I don't care. They can rot wherever they are. The cameras went viral because of my cousin. I gave her the footage for safekeeping. She showed it to her best friend, who showed it to someone else, who uploaded it to a private Discord server. Within a week, it was on Twitter. Within a month, it had been viewed millions of times. Derek lost his job. His parents stopped speaking to both him and Chloe. His friends disappeared. The house went into foreclosure before I could even sell it. He's living somewhere in Easton, Washington now. I heard he's working at a car dealership. I heard Chloe is back living with their parents, who refused to talk about either of them. I didn't leak the footage. I want to be clear about that. But I didn't try to stop it either. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe I should have kept it private, protected their privacy. But they never protected mine. They never cared about my dignity or my heart or my sanity. So I don't feel bad. I don't feel anything when I think about them. That's the gift of going through something like this. You eventually land in a place beyond anger, beyond sadness. You land in a place of nothing, and nothing can be a kind of peace. I live in Portland now. Small apartment, big windows, lots of light. I have a cat. Not Milo. Derek kept Milo, and honestly, I didn't have the heart to fight for him. I have a new cat named Beans. He's orange and stupid, and he follows me everywhere. I have a job I like. I have friends who know what happened and don't treat me like a victim. I go to therapy every Tuesday. I'm not dating. I'm not ready. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. Sometimes I still think about the cameras, about watching my life fall apart in real time on a tiny screen, about sitting on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m., holding my phone with vomit in the sink, about the moment I realized the person I loved most in the world had never really loved me at all. But most days, I don't think about it. Most days, I just live. I make coffee in my quiet kitchen. I walk Beans around the block. I call my mom. I go to bed early and sleep through the night. The nightmares stopped about 6 months ago. Now I just dream about nothing. Blank white rooms, empty fields, peaceful silence. I don't know what Derek and Chloe are doing. I don't want to know. I don't check their social media. I don't ask mutual friends. They are dead to me in the most literal sense. Not because I hate them, because I have no room for them. They took enough from me. They don't get to take my future too. I still have the hard drive. 3 copies, actually. 1 in my safe deposit box. 1 at my mom's house. 1 in my nightstand. I don't watch the footage anymore. I don't need to. It's burned into my memory forever. But I keep it, just in case. Just so I never forget. Just so I never let anyone treat me like the maid again. The last time I saw Derek was at the final divorce hearing. He looked terrible. Thin, gray, like he hadn't slept in months. He wouldn't look at me. He stared at the table the whole time. When it was over, he stood up and walked out without saying a word. I watched him go. I thought about the first time I saw him at that barbecue, how handsome he was, how safe he seemed, how wrong I was. I drove home to Portland that afternoon. I picked up Beans from the sitter. I made myself a grilled cheese sandwich. I watched a movie on my laptop. I went to bed at 9:30. I slept like a rock. No dreams, no nightmares, just darkness and quiet, and the soft weight of my cat curled against my chest. That's the end of the story. Or the beginning. I'm not sure which. All I know is I survived something I never thought I would survive. And I'm still here, still standing, still learning how to trust myself again. Some days are harder than others, but every day is mine. Not Derek's, not Chloe's, mine. And that's worth everything.